I was just like, okay, you want me to be honest? Well, here it is. Like, I don't believe anymore. I don't want to go to church anymore. I just, yeah, I'm kind of over it.
Welcome to Voices of Deconversion. We share the inspirational stories of deconversion told by former Christians who are now atheist or agnostic. Our stories remind us we're in it together. They encourage us as we discover who we are and help us to embrace who we become. Now here's Steve with today's guest.
Welcome back for this week's episode. This is episode 18, part 2. It's the second half of my conversation with Stephen Barry. In this episode, we pick up the story when Stephen had just gotten into an argument with his mother and had decided to run away. A couple other things that we get into in this episode. Stephen touches on his frustration with God and when he prayed his last prayer. He also tells the story of when he told his mom that he didn't believe in God anymore. Stephen also shares with me some of his thoughts on coming out to his mom a second time. And finally, you're listening to a song called Live for Life. You can hear more of Stephen's music at barryorchestra.bandcamp.com. Enjoy the episode.
My mom and I, we were hitting some bumps in the road at that time. There was, I went to Southern in 07, 08, and then I took a year off because I didn't have the money to go back, and I was trying to work. And during that time, there was a time my mom and I got into an argument, and I ran away from home, and that was the time. That was the time when I essentially went to go see my dad. Oh. And this is also the last time that I've seen him. So that was like 9 years ago. Yeah, it was a pretty emotional and like crazy weekend.
So you actually met up with him or contacted him, or?
I contacted him, and he kind of got me. He lives in Minnesota. He lived in Minnesota, then he still lives in Minnesota now. Mm-hmm. And, he basically arranged for me to fly up there.
Oh, wow.
And, I had turned my phone off. So my mom, my sister, my grandmother, they didn't know where I was. They didn't know what's going on. I didn't want them to contact me. I was just like, it's over, like it's, and, I was going through a lot of depression at that time. Had a lot of low self-esteem, had a lot of other issues going on. And also kind of like the whole, I told you about the love me, like the mom love me thing. I had a lot of issue with that because I felt like I was trying, but I never felt like I could actually make her feel like she would still say that. I'd just be like, it'd just be like frustrating.
Nothing you could do could make that better. Is that what you're saying?
That's what it felt like at the time. And
that now, is that why you ran away, or was it kind of all the stuff going on in your life at the time?
It was all the stuff going on in my life at the time. And then you got to think, like, I was just at Southern, and my plan was to go back that fall. But, I tried to sell religious books door to door because someone had talked me into it. Like, oh, you can make a ton of money doing this. And I wasn't finding a job. I didn't have anything lined up. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. I was... my mom was in South Carolina. I was going to college in Tennessee. So, I was going back to her house. So that was where I lived. But where we were doing that, it was in Georgia. And I spent a month doing that, and they kicked me out because I didn't sell enough books.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my God. That's crazy.
And my thing, and it was a pretty bad experience for me. I don't know if that had any impact. I mean, I had a lot of letdowns as far as like church things go. The church was disposable to me. It wasn't really about that. I was like, okay, I go to the church, people don't accept me, or they're not like really committed or whatever. Yeah. It doesn't matter because it's not about them. It's about God. It's about my personal relationship with him. And, this is just kind of like a community thing. We try to make it work, hope for the best, whatever. But if it doesn't work, that's okay. That doesn't mean you throw your faith away.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about that experience. Like, it was just so, even as I was doing this, like, we're hustlers for Christ, you know, like, we went to, like, the projects, man. Like, we went behind, like, places that had, like, a satellite dish on the roof and no door.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
You know, so, like, it was just, and like we're trying to sell them like the Bible story and there are other little vegetarian cookbooks.
Oh my
shit.
Goodness.
And it's just like, man.
They're like, if I could afford a book, I probably would have bought a door first.
Well, I felt bad some of the things that are the situations they put us in, and like maybe there's a situation where I could be good at sales. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there is a situation that I could be, but like, who knows? Like, maybe there's something out there that I don't know about yet. But to me, like, I was just like, okay, this is the book, and they had like this thing they wanted you to say. I was just like, I started to get into it, and I was just fall apart. And like, yeah, and then we got this one, and then we got this thing, and I'm just trying to work my way through college, So like,
it didn't really work out that great. It sounds like.
Well, some people would have, when they see like you're a young person, you're trying to do something positive, you're not out here like, selling drugs,
right?
Or, in gangs, anything like that. They'll try to help you out, or you're in college or whatever, okay, even if they don't buy a book, they might give you a donation or whatever. So I still made like probably like minimum wage for that month. Yeah. But apparently that wasn't enough for what they felt like I should be making.
So you did this for like a month, and was this before you ran away?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was like in the summertime. And it was kind of a big deal because, my mom had to drive me out there. And, I was supposed to be getting my stuff, getting this money. I'm good to go back to school. But since I only made minimum wage money, and then they take a percentage of that anyway. So I came back with like not a whole lot. My mom had to come drive 3 hours to get me a month later. And now I have to start looking for a job again. And I can't find a job. And it was just... more tension, more things going on. And at that point, I don't know if it was August or if it was a little further into the fall. It might have been a little further into the fall because the time to go back to Southern had already passed. So it might have been like September or October.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just kind of a thing. I was like, I'm going to try and do better. I want to be a better son. I want to be a better Christian too. Like I want to really get right with God and really like get in there and get that thing that I'm supposed to be getting, And, this is pre, me praying my last prayer, going through that last year of Southern or whatever. After I went through all that, by the time I got to the end of that year, I was like, you know what? If you want to like show yourself, or if you want to like respond to me, or like, because I feel like I've been doing everything I can, and I don't see why it should be this complicated. Like, right now, I really don't get it. And that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. If you want to do something about it, feel free. If you don't, whatever, I'm just going to keep moving on, living my life or whatever. That's how I felt in that moment. That was 2010. Now, it wasn't like, that wasn't like it. I didn't like stop going to church. I didn't like, like I'm an atheist now. Like, no, it took like maybe a couple more years for me to really kind of feel like this isn't really making sense. And I started going to school. I went back to school, but I went to community college, and I was doing a surgical tech program, and I did that during the week, and I was working during the weekends. And at that time I was living with my mom, and she was kind of she had an income, but she wasn't really working at the time, so I was kind of helping out. We were helping.
And this is all after you kind of said, "Hey, God, like I'm doing what I can." But
yeah, that was 2010. So this is like maybe 3 years later.
And so you moved back in with your mom. That visit with your dad was pretty brief. It sounds like.
Yeah, it was a weekend.
Yeah, it was a weekend.
It's like a day and a half.
And that was like the last and that was the last contact you had with him then?
This was the last time I saw him.
You know,
okay. we had a couple other interactions via phone and stuff. Like, there was another time I tried to open the door to, like, at least give him a chance, but it's, you know, he doesn't really care.
Yeah. So. Okay, so back to what you were talking about. So you've, you know, in 08, 2010, or 07, 08, you were at Southern Adventist University, right?
Yeah.
And those were like your 2 years there. And then you left, you did this like book thing to try to earn some money that didn't quite work out the way you were hoping. And so a few years down the road from that, you've kind of said like, hey, like, to God, kind of like, this isn't really panning out, you know, like I'm not hearing from you. I don't know really have any direction from you, God. So I'm just going to kind of leave things where they are. And so you've moved in with your mom and she's kind of struggling to make ends meet, or maybe she's just earning just enough to kind of get by. Is that kind of the scenario at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, when we moved up here, we got a job at the same hospital at the same time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it didn't pan out for her, you know, so, I mean, but we were still living together and we were helping each other out. It got to a point where, like, nothing has really changed with the God thing, but there are moments where I'd be like, well, you know, I'll go to church, or I would go to church with my mom, or I still listen to Christian music. I'm completely done. It's over.
Right.
But I was still, like, as far as the God thing, I was like, you know, I'm still not hearing nothing. You know, it's just kind of like you break up, but you're not really done. You know, you're not really over. You're just kind of like, you know, like still checking the phone to see if you're going to get a text or, you know, something like that.
That's funny. Yeah. No, I get that. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. So, you know, with the whole school thing, you know, my mom was kind of reluctant because it's like, oh, you're going to be working on the Sabbath. You know, you're going to be working on every Sabbath because you're going to be working on the weekends. Mm-hmm. You know, that was the only way I could keep a full-time job and still go to school at the same time and get this thing. But she was like, well, you know, there's like the medical loophole, like, you know, you're healing the sick, you know, if you're a nurse, you're a doctor, you're like healthcare, whatever. It's like, oh, you know, like, you know, doing the Lord's work, you know, too, you know, these people have to be, you know, healed or whatever. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I was like, cool, as long as I don't, because at that point, it was getting harder and harder for me to go through the Sabbath period. It was like 24 hours of nothingness for me. You know, go to church, hear empty sermons that either don't mean anything or, you know, some people want the sermons where it's almost kind of like a masochistic thing. Like, I want you to tell me that, like, I'm awful and that, you know, I need to get right with God and, you know, like, you're not doing right, you're not living right, and the Lord is coming, and you see these signs or whatever. Like, I think some people want that to make them feel like, oh yeah, he really preached today, and he was saying the word, and yeah, we need to whatever.
That's
whether
funny.
or not their life changes. No.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of feel like that versus, well, you know, I was with my grandkids and, you know, she smiled. It just reminded me of the love of Jesus and, you know, just, you know, like those kind of sermons.
Completely harmless. No one's going to be offended by that at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, to me, either or at that point, I was just like, I can't wait until this is over. Then I got to go home. And then if it's the summertime, like now, sun doesn't set till like 8, 9. So I was just like, man, you know, and that's just how I felt. It was just like, man, I hate having to go through this.
So you're starting to dread the Sabbath and you were starting to kind of not look forward to those days where previously in your life it wasn't so bad.
Yeah, previously in my life, I enjoyed the Sabbath, depending on like what we did. I mean, we've done a lot of different things as far as Sabbath. Like there would be times where we wouldn't go to church. And instead, maybe we would go to, like, a lake or a park, and then we would bring, like, you know, Bible and, you know, devotionals or, you know, like some Ellen White's writings or something like that.
Yeah.
And we would read stuff. We'd bring hymnals. We'd sing songs. You know, we'd bring food and kind of, like, have, you know, a picnic or whatever.
Yeah.
So that would like be church, church in nature or whatever. Sometimes we would do different things and it would be okay, but just kind of like the thing of just like, okay, go to church, come back, eat, and essentially wait for sun to set.
Wow, that's
essentially like like maybe you play a Bible movie, maybe you like it's just like
it's just a whole lot of not
it's a whole lot of nothing. That's exactly what it is.
Wow, that's hard.
Yeah, I mean, and like normal nothing is different from Sabbath nothing, because you can't, if you wanted to just like chill and watch TV or chill and play a game, or maybe like go outside and play some sport or like something like that. It's like, nah, you can't do that. I mean, like going out in nature is okay, but if you're doing like a sport thing, then that's kind of more like about you and not about you connecting with God. So that's kind of no.
Yeah, it's so hard to jump through those hoops.
Yeah. So, but I just went through the year of school, got to a point.
It was the medical school? Is this getting your
surgical technologist program?
Yeah, okay.
So it wasn't like I had to take a test to get certified. So the program is just the program, and that's another like requirement. You have to go through some kind of accredited program.
So you were going through this year. You said it was a year.
Yeah, it was a year.
Okay.
And I graduated, passed, finished that, and I was still working on the weekends, and my mom was like, "Oh, when are you going to start working on weekends?" I was like, "Oh, my supervisor said there wasn't any, like, day shift positions or, like, any other, week positions right now, like." And I didn't ask her, but, I was just kind of, like...
Putting it off, like, just avoiding
it off. Right. But, she kept bringing it up, and she, would be like, you don't ever want to go to church again. Like I keep, I don't hear you talking about Jesus. A real Christian would want to talk about Jesus and want to, preach the good news and like all this sort of stuff. And one of the times when she was saying that, I was just kind of like, well, oh no, there's one thing that she said that really triggered it is like, you're lying to me. You're not being honest with me. And I was just like, okay, you want me to be honest? Well, here it is. Like, I don't believe anymore. I don't want to go to church anymore. Yeah, I'm kind of over it. I did not think about the aftermath of, not in any situation, but especially not in the context of that conversation.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was emotional, but she was, kind of like already like, concerned and, serious. And then that, it wasn't just kind of like, okay, I'm calm. Like, hey, Mom, I want to talk to you about something. It was just like, okay, well, here it is. And it's just like, what? Like, so it just then it went to the next level. And there was just a series of bad conversations and interactions about religion, like, from that point on. And I was still living with her, and I lived with her for another couple of years. And those 2 years were pretty awful probably for the both of us, I would say. Even though I didn't want to argue with her about it, I feel like I would always get dragged into it because she could be talking about anything. She could be talking about food, I bring groceries in or whatever, and it'll just like somehow make its way to the God stuff or to whatever. And then it's just like, oh, wait, but you don't believe in God, do you? Or you don't believe in sin, or you don't believe, I'm just like, oh,
like, oh my goodness,
no, kind of like, I don't know, like, and it would just kind of turn into this thing that just you never know when it's going to go there.
Yeah.
And, of course, she was really disappointed to hear about that. My sister was disappointed to hear that I, wasn't believing anymore.
And up to that point, before that first conversation with your mom, so far in your story, you hadn't kind of come down and said, I don't believe in God anymore. It was more like hey, nothing's going on with God, so I'm just going to kind of live my life, and maybe God's there, maybe he's not. So was it that conversation with your mom, do you think, that like kind of pushed you to make a decision one way or the other? Like, if you're going to kind of put me on the spot here. All right, I don't believe it. Was that kind of how it unfolded for you, or had you already thought about this prior to
I had already thought about it.
Okay. So it was kind of a slow realization that, so prior to that conversation, you didn't believe in God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, 2010 was when I prayed my last prayer and I left Southern. And 2014 is when I told my mom. Like fall of 2014.
That's a long time of just kind of like not being around the church as much, and
Well, you're not gonna not, like, after I'm telling you where I was at in 2010. You're not gonna go from that to like 4 years later and not have progressed somewhere on that needle, whether it's go further back into the church and in relationship with God and whatever, or whether you're not just gonna like, well, because my thing wasn't that I was indifferent in 2010. My thing was I was frustrated. I was just like, I give up.
Yeah.
Essentially. And in the time in between, I continued to look at, religion and look at the God relationship and, how people perceive God talking to them and how they understand, different things I've always just accepted and taken, just because it was told to me. Like I said, I didn't read a lot of like, the atheist books or anything like that. I still have I have read things. I have read like excerpts and, I have some books that I own that, I just haven't really gotten to yet. But I know enough to know that, and enough specific things to know that this just doesn't really make sense to me. In order for it to make sense, there's a lot of things I have to either not think about or not address or come up with excuses for. And I don't see any point in doing that. Like, just like how I said, I don't feel like I could adapt Christianity to like, oh, okay, I'm this, human being who loves art and loves music and, I'm attracted to men and, just all these different things. And it's like, now let me take Christianity, specifically Adventist branch of Christianity, and adopt that to who I am so I can feel comfortable being myself and still maintain a God belief. Why do that when I can just live life and be a human being? Like that's kind of how I feel. Like there's no reason unless I just want the community, but then the community is, how accepting is the community? How accepting was the community even when I was just a normal Christian in there? It's kind of hit or miss. So, which, I mean, communities in general can be hit or miss, people are like that, life is like that. So it's just kind of like, I don't need this. I don't feel like I need it.
Yeah, it's like all these different areas of your life weren't congruent with your faith anymore. So it's like, you can't be you and live life freely and the way you want to live life with the beliefs you used to have, right?
Yeah. Right, absolutely.
So it's this 4-year period from like 2010 where you prayed your last prayer until 2014 when you have that talk with your mom that you're kind of sorting through all of this. Was there a moment you remember being like, I'm done? Or was it just...
It was gradual.
Gradual.
It was gradual.
Yeah.
Because I can think when's the last time I paid money for a Christian album? I'm trying to think. That had to be maybe 2012. Yeah, definitely 2012. There was like still like a couple of Christian artists I was still checking for and I buy their stuff. But it was becoming harder and harder for me to like listen to Christian music because, and like I've said this to people, like now, like my perspective on music is, they would always like tell you like you can't listen to this music because it sounds like this or because they're trying to imitate the world or whatever. And my thing is like, well, yeah, they do try to like rip off different styles, but what are you gonna do? Like, okay, you're a Christian and you want to make music. What are you gonna create a completely different genre? Because Christian music isn't a genre. Just like saying, oh, this is Christian and this is religious. You don't know what the music sounds like. It's just like, well, I guess they're going to talk about God, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Like, let's create something like so not like the world that it's gonna be our own thing. Like, I've never really seen that happen in Christian music.
Yeah.
I mean, if it has happened, maybe I've just missed it.
They just kind of copy whatever genre, the artists are interested in, and they just add Christian lyrics to it, essentially.
But that's the thing. Like, music is music. Like, and whatever resonates. Let's say if we were in like 2001 and maybe Stephen Curtis Chapman decided to create dubstep, or like trap beats or something like that, which of course that wouldn't happen. But hypothetically speaking, that people would be like, well, this is different, and like, what is this? Because it's not something that's happening in the world, but like, like that never happens in Christian music. But like things that resonate, like, okay, like this hits, it kind of speaks to me, like, oh, it's a soft rock style. I don't know if you've ever listened to Dan Fogelberg. I don't know if you've ever heard.
Mm-mm.
Okay, he's like an old artist from the 70s.
Okay.
You've heard of Michael Card, though, right?
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Okay. So you weren't too conservative then.
Like, I listened to, like, God, back in the day. I mean, I listened to a variety of things, actually. Like, okay, variety within the Christian, bubble. But, like, I mean, there was, like, the Stephen Curtis Chapman, Michael W. Smith, but I wasn't really into that. I got really into Caedmon's Call, Small Town Poets, a little bit of Newsboys.
The more youthful kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Card is kind of like for old people. Because it's just really like soft, kind of like soft rock or whatever.
Yeah, like I think of like Ray Boltz or something.
Kinda. But the thing that like struck me like when I heard Dan Fogelberg is that he sounded exactly like Michael Card.
Oh wow.
And I know like plenty of like the super like conservative people that like, oh, we don't even really listen to Christian music because it's like it's it's not good, it's like the world. But that Michael Card, he's kind of like all these biblically based, he would have albums like based on like literally like Bible books or chapters or verses.
Wow.
Or whatever. So like he was very thorough, and like he would apply that to his music, but like his sound was a very like easy listening, soft kind of pop rock sound that was Dan Fogelberg had hits at the time. So it's like this is also popular at the same time this guy starts making music. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, what do you do? Like, yeah, it's really biblically based and it's safe, because I mean, some of it doesn't really have drums or some of it doesn't have like, all these like bells and whistles. But, what makes it not like the world? Like I can think of a lot of Christian groups that I listened to growing up, and at the same time as like Boyz II Men and Drew Hill and like all these like guy R&B groups, they're singing gospel ballads instead of R&B slow jam ballads, and like sound wise, like if it was in another language and maybe you didn't hear like Cristo or like like whatever the word for Christ or whatever that just stuck out to you. You'd be thinking, oh, okay, it's just R&B, soul, love song, or like whatever, So like to me, like sound is like to say that something because it sounds like this or it sounds like that. Like how can that determine whether or not this is a bad thing or you shouldn't listen to it or
right?
Like that kind of thinking just doesn't resonate with me at all.
Didn't make sense, yeah.
I think I got off track, but
oh no, don't worry, you're a music guy, so it's always gonna go back to music, right?
Yeah.
So when this conversation with your mom, and then it sounds like that was the one where you were like, listen, I don't believe it anymore, and then there was the fallout with your sister, or fallout meaning like you had a difficult conversation with her.
That all kind of happen at the same time. It wasn't like separated. Like my sister was in the area. I don't know. There was a time where we were all living together. And there was a time when my sister lived in the same apartment complex as me and my mom. And I can't remember where she was at this moment, but I remember she came over and my mom was telling me how disappointed she was in me. My sister was crying, and she was also telling me that she was, sad about it or sad to hear it. And
How was that making you feel?
I never wanted to tell my mom. I never wanted to. I definitely didn't want to tell her while I was living with her. So, like, I feel like that was the point. I was like, I really fucked up. And the fact that
sucks,
a lot of times when I went back and thought about it, I thought it was just 1 year, but it was 2. Some rough stuff.
So yeah, you said you lived with her for about 2 years after.
For another 2 years after that.
Yeah, that's hard because, like you said, any little thing that happens, her mind goes to Christianity. It goes to the fact that you don't believe anymore.
I mean,
it's triggering her.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, it wasn't like, I don't think it was a conscious thing, but this is just my mom. This is how she talks. This is her worldview. Mm-hmm. So, she's doing her thing. And then it's just like, oh, wait a minute. You don't, like, she's talking to me as if, normal, like as if, you believe all the things I've ever taught you. And it's like, oh, wait, you don't.
She would realize
and, it's just like, I can't deal with it. And my thing was just like, I don't want to, and even now, like, my mom, she's trying to get me, she does like Bible study ministries at her church. And, she wants me to read one of the Bible studies that she has, and she wanted me to talk with her about it. I was just like, I didn't really.
Was this recently?
Yeah, this is very recent. This
so she's still trying.
Yeah, she's still trying. And like, I think we've gotten to a place where like we don't. It's much better. It's much better. I think we have a pretty decent relationship right now. I think it's hard. I don't know if she's ever going to be able to completely let go of that because, this is her worldview. That's not changing.
Yeah.
And, I think she feels like if she just doesn't do anything about it, like I know other parents that, they might be pastors or they might, they're involved in the church and their kids have left. Or their kids, they might still claim Adventism, but they don't go to church. They don't do, they're essentially not. They've gotten to a point where, they just don't really say anything about it. They don't really do anything. I think she feels like I'm speculating again. I think she might feel like if she got to that point, she would be condoning my, my sin.
Yeah.
Like I haven't told her that, about my sexuality still.
Interesting. Okay.
And I might have to do that pretty soon. And that's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Is there a reason in particular that you feel you need to do it soon?
Well, I'm just getting older and it's, I started rocking with her recently, like we live pretty close to each other and I've been gaining a little weight. So I was like, I need to do more active stuff. And so I'm going to start at least walking every day. And she's like, oh, why don't we, walk together? So I was like, oh, okay. So we've been doing that. And, of course we're talking while we're walking and, she's brought up, the religion stuff a couple times and she's brought up, just different things about my life and where she's, she's a mom. She's my concerns about what I'm gonna do and where I'm headed and the direction of my life, especially since I'm not, a believer anymore. I just feel like it's getting to the point where like I just really need to tell her like I don't need to. She has like point blank asked me a couple times in the past if I was gay, and I told her no because I was still living with her and I didn't want to
have that conflict.
Right. And I don't know if either of these times were like before the atheist thing. I think at least one of them wasn't. But I was just like, I didn't think that I can handle that and still live with her. Like, I didn't know how that was going to go.
Right.
I still don't know how it's going to go, grand scheme of things. Is she going to just feel like, you're deceived and, this is just another step in your apostasy and, that Satan's got your mind and that he's possessing you and he's got your soul and all this stuff? Or is she going to feel like she can't associate me? Like, I especially feel like, if I was with somebody or if I was going to move in with somebody or if I wanted to get married, like, how is she going to, because I don't think that she's going to in any way, she's made it pretty clear that, she doesn't support that. She doesn't believe it's right. I don't even think she believes it's a real thing. I think she just believes like that it's something that humanity and his sinful and ignorance has created.
Yeah.
Just,
well,
it's not an orientation. There is no, sexual orientation. There's just, man, woman, that, so.
I guess 2 questions. Who knows that you're an atheist in your kind of your circle, and then who knows that you're gay? Because if your mom doesn't know, then have you told many other people? Or
most of my friends know about both, which doesn't necessarily say a whole lot because my friends are spread out, and I also, post college, it's kind of ended up that I don't really have a whole lot of friends around that are in my age group. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of friends that are older than me, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I've told a lot of people.
Okay.
But my family, my sister knows, and she found out by, she kind of went through my phone.
Uh-oh.
I feel like she went through my phone. She claims that she borrowed my phone. I let her borrow my phone, and that some random message between me and some guy just randomly came up, and she read it, and apparently when she sent me this like in Facebook message, like she never actually had a conversation about it. She just sent me this long Facebook message saying that, I was disturbed. I felt like you should have told me because I've been a good sister, and if this is why you're saying you don't believe in God, then that's a pretty stupid reason, because I know plenty of people that are gay and still believe in God, even if they still know what's right, even though they are who they are, like, some kind of...
So she wasn't
it was
very
a very
supportive.
long message.
She wasn't very supportive then.
That's literally the beginning and the end of like that. I never responded to it.
Wow.
And she did sometime later she sent me a thing that was just like, periodically she'll do this, and I don't know what's the motivation for it or what the thought process is behind it, because we don't ever have conversations about this stuff. But she'll send me like these videos. Like she sent me a video one time that was like an I think transgender person like comes back to like Christianity, or like, like I don't know. It's just like one of those kind of testimony things.
What do you think when you get stuff from her like that?
It's very highly annoying. The last thing that she sent me was one of those Illuminati conspiracy theory videos about like how like all these music artists are in the Illuminati and they've sold their soul to the devil. Why? See, it's in their lyrics. Here, let me like give you quotes of these lyrics where they're saying they sold their soul to the devil. And that was the first time I kind of had it back and forth with her, because she sent me like maybe 3 or 4 videos like this, or a few. Mm-hmm. And so at that time I was just kind of like, okay, so I know about like poetic license and using like religious imagery and like using things as metaphors and things that happen in literature and in writing and in art. And just because someone says they saw an angel, or I sold my soul to the devil, or any of these sort of things, doesn't necessarily mean that they literally saw an angel, or they literally like signed on the dotted line and gave it to the Satan being.
Right. It's figurative. It's art.
Right. And so I went on Wikipedia and I found like this list of like they literally have like compiled a list of like the tropes of like sold my soul to the devil from like in art, like all the way back to like Faust. Am I saying that right? Faust.
But anyway, there's this list, of like all these people who've used that phrase or used these phrases. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting, and I was just like randomly doing like a quick, little search to see if I could find, that for her, and I'm like, so literally, you do you really believe that all of these people are demon possessed right now? And all of these works of art were created through the influence of demon possession. Is that what you really believe? And then my thing was just kind of like, please don't send me any more of these videos. And her response to me was, well, I'm only going to say this one thing. And then, since you have refused to see the truth and accept the Lord, the Lord is going to allow the devil to reveal himself to you. And I hope you're strong enough to handle that.
Oh, my goodness.
And I wanted to respond to it. I was just like, nah.
That's rough. I mean, like, what do you say? I mean, nothing you say is going to make her not believe that.
But I mean, it's different with my sister. Like, I don't really care. Like,
yeah.
Like, and because the way that she went about doing that, and the way that she went about,
right.
even confronting me, okay, even if you did go through my phone, or even if I somehow, because I don't remember letting her borrow my phone, especially during that time period when she said she did. Yeah. But maybe she did, or maybe she asked and I wasn't paying attention, and she went and grabbed my phone and started using it, and maybe something popped up. Still, the way that she handled that, I just don't really respect it. Like, at that time, she was living in the same apartment complex as me and my mom.
Yeah.
So, and she was like, oh, I've been meaning to talk to you, but I've just been so busy and I can't find the time. And supposedly when she's sending me this message, she's known for months.
Oh.
So it's just kind of like, you can't have a conversation with me? Or, if you're concerned in any way, or if this, like, means anything to you, or if you care one way or the other, you can't, like, sit and have, like, a sibling conversation, and, like, it's just, like, I don't really care, one way or the other, because, like, it is what it is. I mean, even, like, whenever I had the conversation with my mom, I'm just not sure how the aftermath is going to play out, and I just really, like, even now, like, when my mom wants to do, like, she wants me to do this Bible study, and she wants me to, like, like, I'm just presenting information to you. If you gave something to me, I'd read it. And which I do kind of feel like it's kind of a little bit like I'm just saying that as a disclaimer to kind of get my point in there. Like, if Jehovah's Witnesses or, the Mormons or whatever rolled up to your door and they handed you literature,
you gonna read it?
I doubt very seriously you're gonna read it and try to, like,
right, like with an open mind and give it a shot.
Any other kind of religion,
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know, and we're probably gonna have to have a conversation about that too, because I don't want. I love my mom, and I want us to continue to have a good relationship, and I don't know, I'm being super transparent here, but I just feel like I don't want that to be what we talk about. It's not, just like I know that there's things that she probably would not enjoy talking about. She would not enjoy spending her time with me debating about, like, the age of the earth and, like, how the Bible was put together and different things like that. And it's just kind of like, like, and I don't want to do that with my mom. I mean, I like to have conversations with people, but with my mom, to me, I just don't feel like I can do that. And particularly when she has, she can't tell me she doesn't have the desire and hope and, low-key agenda to want to bring me back to Christ.
Yeah.
Bring me back to the church. Bring me back to all the things that I taught you as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, versus, I want you to think for yourself and make your own choices, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, parent stuff is tough. I mean, I've had my own struggles with telling my mom, when I became an atheist, and, so it's not easy to do that. And then to have another conversation that's almost, I don't know, it may be just as or more difficult than the atheist conversation. Yeah, I can see why you don't, you're not looking forward to that talk because you don't know what's going to happen. It's a variable that you can't control,
Yeah. But yeah, I know it's a talk I need. I know it's a talk I need to have. And even just like for my own integrity and my own, I heard somebody say, I don't know who it was, but it's like once you own your truth, nobody can use it against you, which I feel like is a really good quote. But even kind of like bigger than that, like, I don't think it's necessarily the fact that, I have people that want to just attack me for any of these things. Like I've talked with a lot of my Christian friends, that still remain in my life about, where I'm at. And nobody has treated me differently. Nobody has, I mean, I have gotten into like some friendly arguments, one or two, but for the most part, I mean, it's just people have, either positive or like, okay, well, it may not be like 100% the response that I would want, but they still, treat me with love and respect, and
yeah.
Still respect me as a human being. So
that's the important part. Yeah,
that's the important part. And I feel like just as I'm getting older, like, do I really want to, like, I want to be just kind of live in like complete transparency and complete honesty. And I feel like I'm pretty much close to there. I'm not like all the way there. And like I was, when I went on Cash's show, I was a little bit nervous about doing that because I was like, I'm really going to talk about everything. Like, I'm going to talk about everything, but like, I should put my full name out there. Like, even though like, I doubt very seriously my mom's going to find this, but I mean, there's the off chance that she could.
Sure.
Or that someone else could find it and be like, hey, is that your son? Did he, did you hear what he said about this? So, and like, even here, like, I've been like super transparent and stuff. And like, I hope I haven't like, said anything that like would make, my mom or my sister or whatever, like feel, betrayed or, upset about, because I do love them. We've all had our ups and downs and we've all had our differences, but I just want to be just a complete 100% free human being, like I want to, like even the whole concept of free will, which I have huge problems with. It's like, okay, even if like you accept that as like a concept of like, okay, we can all make our own choices. Like, what's the point if I don't actually make my own choices? Like, what's the point if I can't actually think for myself, weigh out evidence or weigh out like, okay, let me look at it from this angle. Let me look at it from this angle, and let me just decide what works for me and what doesn't, and what makes sense to me and what doesn't. If I'm not allowed to do that, then, what's the point? What's the point of life if you can't just explore like the full facet of like who you are as a person?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's extremely stressful to be someone you're not, or to pretend you're something you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you, we didn't get into it too much in your earlier story, but when did you realize you were gay and question that kind of thing?
I don't really, like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, everybody has, like, oh, I knew when I was, like, 3 years old. I knew I was, like, 4. And, like, if you do know at, like, that age, I feel like your parents probably suck at their job. Or maybe you got molested. Or maybe, like, something happened that wasn't supposed to happen, basically. But otherwise, I think anyone who does have, like, some different kind of sexuality than the perceived norm is gonna know at puberty.
So you were still a Christian for a long time. Were you kind of battling with the idea of, God says homosexuality is a sin, but yet I have these feelings? I mean, did you have that struggle?
I was so sheltered and oblivious to a lot of things that, like, for me, it wasn't really a factor in my deconversion. It wasn't really something that I focused on a lot. I just didn't I would feel certain attractions or like whatever, and I wouldn't know what was going on and also what to do with that. Or am I supposed to do anything with that? I guess I'm not supposed to do anything with that. Because, then you got to also think about, like, sex from a Christian perspective. Is really no such thing as sex until you're married. I've even heard, like, sermons about, like, are you even supposed to kiss before you're married? You're not supposed to hold hands before you're married. Like, really, like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think because of that, it was, like, okay, this sexual thing. Like, I was trying to figure it out in my own mind. It would have been nice to have someone to talk about it.
Oh, sure.
Talk to about it.
Yeah.
But I definitely didn't feel like I could in, like, those early years. But I did, like, in my mind, if I wasn't, like, in the mindset that I was and, dealing with all these different religious things, feeling guilty or, like, feeling, it's like a bunch of different feelings and emotions going through my head, in regards to this. And then also just like, okay, well, maybe, you go through this stage where, like, girls, like, you don't like girls are icky or whatever. And then suddenly, after puberty kicks in, like, that's, like, the reason for existence for, the heterosexual male. Like, everything you do is, like, you work out to look good for girls. You get a job so you can get money, so you can get a car to put girls in, you everything revolves around that, from what I've seen from my experience with, being around other guys, like, that's how their life revolves around.
So it didn't really factor into your deconversion, but did it help when you deconverted to kind of embrace who you were a little bit more?
Yes and no. Because I had to kind of, like, come out to myself, and I didn't do that till I was, like, 21.
So yeah, you hadn't really accepted, not that you hadn't accepted it. Sorry, that may not be a good word.
Well, no, that's a fine word.
Okay.
The thing is, like, I didn't know what was going on with me, but I knew that something was different because I was not attracted to women. There was a time when I asked a girl out, or I was trying to ask a girl out. I was trying to talk to her on the phone. It was a church girl. She sang in the choir. She had a great voice. She was pretty. And, I was awkward about it. And, she put her older sister on the phone and told me, like, oh, she's not here right now. She's busy or whatever. She did one of those.
Oh, no.
And so I was just like, forget her, I didn't say anything more extreme than that. That was when I was, like, 17. So like, at that time, like, even when I did that, that was just kind of, like, motivated by, like, oh, you should ask her out. Isn't she cute? Don't you think she's cute? Like, I think she likes you or whatever. And not, like, family or, like, hearing other people say that. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess,
just going along with it.
I'm 17 now, I guess, might as well, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But, I wasn't attracted to her. There was another time when I was at Southern as a theology student, or, fellow theology student. We were in the same classes together. We worked on a project together. She started talking to me about her life and about personal stuff. And I love having conversations. And I'm also, I would say I'm kind of guarded. But when I get in a situation where I feel like I don't have to be, I don't have a problem completely dropping all of that and, like, talking about, like, the really serious, deep stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think she had never had conversations with another guy before. I think because of that made her feel like, oh, we have something going on, or, this could potentially be something. And then the more conversations we started to have, I could tell she was going kind of leaning that way. She had always had a boyfriend from, like, high school on,
so she needed someone in her life.
Other next. She was actually supposedly with somebody when we first, started working on, like, whatever project we were working on. But by the time she was talking to me more, she's like, yeah, I'm kind of done with him at that point. So, and I was just like, I don't know how to go about doing this, or like how to, like I'm not really attracted to her. And at that point, I'm still not really accepting myself as like, okay, this is where your sexuality is, or even like a scientific understanding of sexuality and attraction and what that is and how that works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just weren't at that point.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time. I probably made some people uncomfortable. I probably, I just, I didn't really know what was going on, but I felt like, okay, well, it's going to happen. This is going to be a thing that's going to happen. I'll find the right girl someday or whatever, but I'm kind of okay by myself, I guess. But then also in the back of my mind was this other thought that's just like, you're probably going to be alone for the rest of your life.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I don't. Again, it's so weird, like thinking about a lot of this stuff, because a lot of this stuff was not like direct, conscious things. I was like, I'm super ultra aware of this. It was just like me kind of wrestling with it and trying to figure out, and agonize with God over and that kind of thing. I just like in my lifetime, I've never been attracted to a woman, to a female. Just like ever, not even once, not even a little bit. And it was just something that I didn't think about, and I just kind of pushed to the side. And it's very easy to do that, because if you're a Christian, there's not really any such thing as sexuality until you get married. So unless you have found someone and you're pursuing marriage,
it's not something you have to worry about.
It's not something you're supposed to be worrying about. It's not something you're supposed to be doing. It's, null and void.
You just kind of, just floated through life in a sense, like not having to really address that, because it wasn't necessary for you until later on, and you were, sorting through all of it. Yeah. So when you think back on, your entire deconversion experience, deconversion is a huge change in a person's life. What about you stayed the same? Something positive about yourself that from the time you were young until now stayed the same about you, despite that big change?
I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like I've changed a lot, but then I also feel like I haven't changed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from just like, general maturity and, life experience and learning things and trying to figure out social skills and confidence and like a lot of things like that, which I'm still not like 100% on all of those things, but I think I'm a lot better than I was just going to college, or like even before that. Like before that, it was just like, I wasn't there at all.
Yeah.
I feel like I've always been like interested in like life and in art and in people. A lot of the better parts of me are on this side, because like now I have the freedom to like really like, okay, I don't have to be afraid to talk to this person because of what they believe, or because of I can't, the only reason I can associate with them is because I'm trying to witness to them, or I'm trying to be a good influence, or like I can just listen to their story and have a conversation, or just kind of like share life with them
without judgment.
Right, because there is plenty of times where, well, maybe not a whole lot of times, but I can think of times where even, I came across, whether it's people I worked with that were gay, or that didn't believe in God, or that, and I treated them a little differently just because it was like, oh, well, like I can't condone their sin. I don't want to communicate to them that it's like, oh yeah, I'm okay with, like whatever the bad thing is, because I can't do that. I'm not supposed to do that. That's wrong.
Right.
So it kind of just changed the way I look at people and the way I look at life.
Yeah.
I think I've always been kind of sensitive, and I've always been kind of emotional, and those parts of me are definitely still there.
Yeah, being an emotional and a sensitive person, that's kind of the common thread that was with you from the early years to today.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying, yeah. And one of my other questions that I ask here is, what do you like best about being an atheist? And it sounds like one of the things is that you can, like you were just saying, just meet people where they're at, not be judgmental, just not have to think like, am I condoning their sin by talking to them? You did a good job of answering that question as well in your response. So
yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good one too. I that resonates with me as well.
Yeah.
So when you think back on the Christian you, what do you think about that person now?
I think it was just kind of like the pre-stage, like, I guess even when you talk about evolution, that's just kind of like the earlier version of me, so I was a lot more, there was a lot more fear, and there was a lot more of just lack of thought,
yeah.
Or like really being able to like ask myself, okay, well, what do I want? Or like I always felt like I had to, like even now with like charity and different things like that, or different things that I've considered getting involved in, or you see someone and you give them some money, or you help them out or whatever. Like I don't feel like I have to do anything that I don't want to do, or that I don't choose to do for whatever reason. I don't. I used to feel like, when I go out, when I'm at school or when I'm around my friends, I have to be this person because, I have to represent Christ. Mm-hmm. And, if I be myself, that's gonna, I'm sinful, I've got these issues, that's what's gonna be on display, and it's not gonna show Christ. So it's really, it's kind of a conundrum when you're around other people, and that doesn't help with like social awkwardness or anything like that. I mean, at least it didn't for me, especially when I was really seriously thinking about it and trying to figure out how I could do it. Like I was a terrible witnesser,
Well, it's kind of like the sales job thing. It reminds me of that, like you're trying to pitch something to someone.
Yeah. Well, it's like I remember telling someone who was on antidepressants, it's like, you don't need to take antidepressants, you just need Jesus, basically.
Oh,
like you need to like pray about it, or like surrender to God. And
common Christian belief, yeah.
Right. And he just kind of like, he is like, really? Like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Like, are you serious? I just like sounded like a total douchebag. But I was trying to witness. I don't know. I just feel like the Christian me is a lot less aware of just people and how they think and how they respond to things. Like I feel like I can communicate a lot better, even though I don't always do that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can relate to people a lot better, all different kinds of people.
Yeah.
That's why I love having conversations. Like those are the things that's what I do. I do that more than reading. I do that more than like the other, I guess the atheist things, like like I do this intellectual shit and like I know these things and I can spit out this info and whatever. Like I've learned a lot of the things that I've learned through like friendships and relationships and through conversations and just like actually thinking about like, well, does that make sense? I kind of wish more people would do that. I kind of wish more people would do that from different cultures. You can learn a lot about other people by just like having conversations,
that's
versus,
really cool.
Trying to pitch something to them because it's the truth or it's the right thing, whatever that might look like.
Right. So this might hit on, the next question might hit on what you're getting at here, but is there something that you learned or experienced in your life now that you've deconverted that you may not have if you were still a Christian?
I don't know if it's specifically because of deconversion, but I just kind of feel like I've learned just a lot more about people and just kind of see how we're all connected. Sounds really cheesy, right?
No, that's cool though. I mean, that is a big part of, I think, deconversion because we're so judgmental as fundamentalist Christians that we have a hard time seeing people as people. There's always some ulterior motive, or there's some kind of like, I'm afraid to talk to this person because they're living a sinful life or something, you know.
Well, it just doesn't. You don't feel like being connected to people, and just people like the human race, or humanity. Even like connecting to like people, within my race and my culture and stuff like that. Like when you're a Christian, it's like, okay, well, this, there's the world, and the world is this thing, so like you can't be like the world. You got to be in the world and not of the world. So, I'm sure some people have different perspectives, but like for me, like I never really felt like that. Like now I feel like I can have a conversation with anybody that doesn't necessarily have an agenda to like make me think like them, whatever it is, whether it's politics or whether it's, whatever. And, you can just like kind of catch a vibe and like just really
just have a normal conversation.
Right. And just kind of like share life, like, what's going on in your life? What do you like? What do you not like? What do you feel about things?
You're being real.
What's important to you? What's not important to you? I like having those conversations. A lot of the conversations I've had about religion and stuff has been things that I've initiated just because those discussions are interesting to me, they're the kind of discussions I feel like I can't necessarily have with my mom just because it's a different kind of dynamic.
Okay. Yeah. Different dynamic. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, when you think back on your deconversion experience, is there something when you think about what you went through that you're most proud of?
I think I'm probably not as proud of myself as I probably should be. And maybe that's why I haven't come out to my mom yet. But, just I'm trying to, like being like this free, 100% human being person. Like I'm trying to get used to like accepting that, and being able to accept like positive vibes, like accept when somebody gives you a compliment or gives you praise or whatever, because that used to be a bad thing. Like you don't want that. Right. You don't want that to go to your head and that kind of stuff. So I feel good, somebody, a friend of mine asked me if I feel like any guilt or if I, if like any of like the journey, it's like, is it weigh on you, anything like that? You still feel like fear of hell, does that pop up or like anything like that? And it's just like, man, like I don't think about that at all. Like even when I think about it, it's just kind of like, I feel like I've done my best and I'm still doing my best right now. Yeah. And, there's, if that is not good enough and I still need to be lit on fire, then, well, which is kind of another thing. Like, I don't understand, like, there's no living organism that I want to light on fire, personally. I mean, even if I might be a hypocrite and eat some barbecue,
Yeah.
there's no human or animal or otherwise that I want to just be like, hey, let's light them on fire just for any reason whatsoever. Like, so I can't imagine like that, like, oh, you couldn't figure out belief, well, I tried to show you, it's a wrap, or any other reason.
When you think about someone who is recently deconverted, who might be listening to this podcast, what encouragement or piece of guidance would you give that person?
Just keep asking questions. It's okay to ask yourself what you want. What do you want out of life, and what do you want out of your experience of consciousness and choice making? It's okay to not know, and it's okay to just be trying to figure it out. To not have all the answers or not know exactly where you stand. Listen to cultivate your own voice in your mind if you've been trying to listen for another one that is not really there.
Yeah.
That's probably what I'd say. Because I feel like, if I was going to talk to myself back in the day, I wish I could have gotten myself asking those questions earlier, and I could have also just formulated a better way to come out, like a healthier way to come out, and just kind of really deal with it, because I didn't really have the skills, the emotional and like processing skills to just be like, okay, sit my mom down, like say like this is what I think and da 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 da, like, and I'm still not 100% there, but I feel like I'm a lot more capable of giving that a shot now than I was, when I was first even like having the initial thoughts of doubt.
Well, are there one or two resources that you would recommend for someone who's deconverting?
Definitely, I'm going to go ahead and plug Cass's podcast, Everyone's Agnostic Podcast. That's the homie. Shout out to Bob Pondillo, too. Because that was, even though that kind of came after the fact, it's still been very helpful to me in like just listening to other people tell their stories, and kind of helped me realize that, hey, I'm not alone. Other people have like had the same experience or like similar experiences, and they've thought about, their faith, and not everybody's completely abandoned it like I did, but maybe they've just approached it in a different way. So that's a really good resource.
Yeah.
And also, like, for me, I don't think there was any one thing that kind of like specifically helped me, but just kind of like overall, art was like a big thing for me. Being able to poke fun at like the things that we think are sacred, or being able to say like, hey, I don't believe this, like, put it in a song, or, put it in like a film. Like I watched a lot of Woody Allen movies during kind of my
that's cool
my deconversion, and like he had always tried to slide these little like religious jokes. Sometimes you'd really just like go for it. Sometimes it'd be a little bit more subtle. But like for me, like I kept wanting to see more of his movies, just because like it's like I can't think of any other time that I remember like anybody just saying these sorts of things. So I mean, and if something resonates with you, I think you should ask yourself, why does it resonate with you? And, kind of go down the train of thought, rather than just be like, oh, no, I can't watch that. Or I can't read that. Can't think that. Can't associate with that person. Can't keep having conversations with that person, Yeah. There were some artists that I listened to that had like some songs that kind of it sparked the idea of like, it's like you think about this religion thing. And I mean, at that time, since I had already gone through my little period of like, okay, I'm frustrated with this, I was receptive to hearing that. So, and it's few and far between as far as music artists go. Music artists like definitely keep the door open big time for God.
Was there a name of an artist off the top of your head, or a song off the top of your head that you can think of that was helpful?
There's a band called Angels and Airwaves, and it's actually the lead singer from Blink-182 side project. So he's done like maybe 3 or 4 albums with this band. They had an album called Love. There's quite a few songs there that kind of take jabs at traditional religious thought. Now, I don't think they like totally. There's still the idea of like, okay, there might be a God being, but there's a song on because it's like a 2-part album. So there's a song I think on the second part of the album called "The Revelator," and it's about the quote unquote end times, but it's just kind of like the thought, like, what are you gonna do if there is no end times? And like, you're waiting for the hounds of hell, you're waiting for all this stuff to happen, and then it never comes, and then we're still alive, and hey, there wasn't anything to worry about after all, so it's just kind of like presenting that idea. And there's a couple other songs about that, a couple other lines. There's a line in another song where it's like, when God falls fast asleep, bombs are still hitting the Middle East, and like, things like that. That album, and like when it came out and the time I was listening to it, I was still kind of like in like, Christian land a little bit. So I was just like, you're like, I don't know if I should be listening to this right now. But so yeah, that was the thing that kind of stood out. There's other things that stick out here and there, but that was like kind of profound for me. So
yeah, those are good. Those are great resources. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Right now, the name of my Facebook URL is not coming to my head. It's probably Stephen.Barry, but it might not be. So if you see a picture of a black guy that looks like me, it's probably me. And my Twitter is Barry Orchestra, Barry Orchestra. Bandcamp is the music site. Barry Orchestra Tumblr is the blog. And Barry Orchestra Gmail is my email. So just like Barry Orchestra anything is just kind of like my thing. That's my production handle. So I've tried to make all my things Barry Orchestra.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Stephen, this has been a great conversation. We've gotten into so many things.
So you're gonna have fun editing this shit, man. This is like movie length.
I think I might. Well, I know I'm gonna split it up into at least 2 episodes. It was all really interesting, and I really enjoyed hearing it. So thanks for sharing it and taking the time out of your evening or morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's a really great opportunity. I don't think I've ever been like this transparent in a public format. So it's actually a little bit scary, but just kind of doing it, like kind of my Bill O'Reilly shit. We're going live. Okay.
Do it live.
Yeah. That's it. It's out there.
Thanks for listening to Voices of Deconversion. Be sure to join us next time by subscribing to the podcast. If you'd like to learn more, check out our newsletter at bodpodcast.com.